And hopefully this video will be a quick jump start to get you up to speed with what's happening in the dating market and why it is the way it is.
Then what you have is you have a bunch of women competing
This is Logan Uri, and she's talking with Scott Galloway, and this is on Diary of a CEO. I'm a subscriber. Also, I'll put a link down below to the video.
for the same men, and then a bunch of guys get ignored. But what
Okay. Now, she starts off right away saying all the women are looking for the same men. Yes, this is true. This started out slowly, but has reached full speed ahead now, where every woman who's, women tend to be pickier than men, has decided on the sixes, right? 6 feet tall, six pack, and six-figure income, which is now translated into $250,000 or half million income at the minimum here in 2025. But so all the women are going after the same guys. And by the way, only 14% of men, I think, are over 6 feet. And so you add the rest of it, it's almost nobody. So those guys are really enjoying the dating market. The rest of them are not. So I'm going to tell you that my quick cheat code here is men should wait till at least 30 to enter the dating market if they don't fit that description, and you'll find out why.
what I also see is that those top guys are having a hard time deciding. So I feel like in my coaching practice as a dating coach, I'm working with a lot of women who say, "What do I do? I've changed my profile the way you said I should. I took your class, but I still feel like there's just not enough great guys." And then I work with these CEO men who are having such a hard time choosing. And so I think we really have this
Or they're not choosing, they're just playing the field. Okay. I think you'll find out through this video that there are some guys that, and I guess I kind of fit that. I was dating a while ago, I'd say first time around. And actually, it was a lot. Now that I look back at it, I just thought, well, that was my experience because I'd never dated before with apps. But there was one day when I had 9 dates in one day. Okay. And these were people that I actually wanted to meet too, that I had already gone through a whole bunch of other ones. But, this assumes a guy actually wants to try to settle down because there's plenty of guys out there who fit the description, maybe my description, that just don't want to.
exacerbated problem where so many women are competing for the same men and then a bunch of guys are getting ignored. And then what ends up happening is where do those guys go? And they go online. That's what you
They go to
see.
porn.
They go to porn or they go to Reddit. I mean, I love Reddit, but they're really going to some of these red pilled communities. And so what
Yeah.
you're seeing now
Right. Okay. So these are the guys who aren't getting any dates that are resorting to these tactics.
is just men really opting out of society. So when you go back to that stat, 1 in 7 young men in the UK is NEET, not an employment, education, or training. They have just opted out. And as Scott says, there's nothing scarier than a single man, a young
Well, this is in the traditional sense. Like I said, my advice is wait till you're at least 30. Build something, build your career, build what you're going to do with your life, and then wait, and you will find the women. And yeah, a lot of these men are more traditional too, because I'd say that the men who are going to wait are more traditional. The guys who are taking advantage are way more liberal. Obviously, that's what they're doing. They're taking advantage of and participating in anything and everything. The conservative guys are saying, "Well, look, I just want this. I just want to raise a family." This is what I guess what they're saying. And you just need to wait. You need to build what you have so the hypergamous women, the picky women, will find you when you're 30, 40 or so years of age.
young single man. And so we are just creating a lot of these angry young single men who are saying, well, this is rigged against me. And so
Okay,
that's why I am worried about the rise of people
only angry if they think it's never going to improve, but it will improve once they get to 30 or 40 years of age.
like Andrew Tate. And if we wonder where are the dads, where are the men? Well, men are finding these father figures, but they're finding them online and they're not the father figures that I would choose for the majority of men. And so I'm really worried about this because I feel like women are saying, guys, you need to step up because I can provide and I don't need that from you. And guys are not prepared to rise to the occasion.
What are women looking for? Scott talked about height.
Yeah. So I would
There we
say,
go.
I work at Hinge, but I do think that apps have perpetuated this issue around height because if you can set your height filter to something, then you might set it higher. And then it's as if you have the dating app is a club and you're literally having bouncers that prevent a bunch of guys from even
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it used to be you only had the choice of who was in your quick surrounding geographic area, and that was it.
getting into the club. So many women in the US set their height filters at 6 feet, but only 14% of men in the
There you go,
US are 6
14.
feet or taller. So what happens to the other 86% of men? And women are saying, "Where's my guy?" It's like, "Well, he's not even showing up on your app." And so a huge thing that I push women to do is to change their height filters and just say there is nothing that proves that you're going to have a successful long-term relationship if the guy is
I say
higher.
it's true for
I'm
sure.
married to a short king. I love it. I feel like I really found this gem. And I think that so many women are missing out on great potential partners because of things like height.
Scott's point as well about they will date one of the men in the top 10%,
Yeah.
sleep with him potentially, and then that kind of adjusts their standards and they expect all other men to meet that standard, but there is
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is the thing about all of this availability online. Oh gosh. And of course, all the dating app pictures are 10 years old anyway. But yeah, so not only do they have high standards, but then you date one guy and then nobody else measures up anymore to the women. This is just going to mean that a lot of women are probably going to not have kids because of this, and they're focusing on their careers at a time where they're out competing men. And that's why I say the men, that's what they need to do is wait.
there isn't enough men to meet that standard, is there?
I haven't specifically heard that. I mean, there is a lot of evidence around a sort of mating that people sort of have an internal sense of how attractive they are and that they end up with someone similar to that. But a sort of mating is different than hypergamy, which is really this idea,
Mm.
as Scott said, that women tend to date horizontally and up and men date horizontally and down. So if you have
That's a very traditional value. Keep this in mind. It's funny because all the women who think they're being so selective and choosy, it's a very traditional value that probably doesn't have any place anymore, I would think, as everyone's equal, just like the men paying for everything type of thing doesn't necessarily isn't required. I don't know, or maybe even holding the doors. I don't know if they get that into that here or not.
two-thirds of women who are college grads and one-third of college grads who are men, and some of them are going to date women without college degrees, you truly do have this dating crisis where there's just not enough men to meet this hypergamous mating.
Okay. So it's the 80-20 rule in action, right? 80% of the women want the 20% of the men. Most women are following along and doing what other women are. They want all the things that all the women do, want all the women as a sociological issue or stat, and then only 20% of the men can even have a chance. So, like I was saying, the solution isn't to say, "Oh my gosh, we're destroying men." It's like, "Hey, men, what would they really want?" Well, don't you think they would make a trade-off if you have a stable and fulfilling life and you're 38? Okay, not to say that you'll need a 38-year-old woman at that point. Women's dating their value in the dating market is highest at like 21, 22. So some woman who's looking for a more traditional relationship and doesn't want to sleep around, which is basically what this is going to be there for you. And of course, these men who are rejected, they're not going to want to sleep around. They can't. They won't be able to. So I think it sets up a lot of good matches. You just have to normalize the age difference. That's what's going to happen here going forward for people that are actually going to have kids, in my opinion.
Again, you can't tell women to lower their expectations, but this is the reality. When you ask a man if you could have a woman who had 80% of everything you wanted, 75% say, yeah, I'm on board.
Mhm.
When you say to a woman, a man has 80% of what you want, 75% say that's not enough.
Oh my gosh, that's that. Is that true? Let me know in the comments. And I suppose it is because women tend to be more picky than men. They tend to take better care of themselves than men. So I would think that this stat reflects that. Oops, sorry about that.
But if you
Yeah.
but even look at the media.
Right, right, right.
What does the media tell a woman to do? He's out. But he didn't open your door. He's not nice to his parent. You'd walk right out on that man.
Yeah, don't settle. That's what they're saying, right? You know your worth.
Like it's literally every piece of media is you don't need him. You're a strong, independent woman. Pull the ripcord. You're out.
Not
And
perfect.
it is the basic kind of
So what's going to happen here is there's going to be a larger and larger percentage of women who do not have kids, or there's going to be a larger and larger percentage of women that freeze their eggs and either have someone else birth their children or go to a sperm bank on their own as they're reaching age 35, something like that.
communication around this is you are a strong, independent, powerful woman. That is wonderful. And quite frankly, you don't need the imperfect man. And they're just not connecting. I read that on Tinder, a man of average attractiveness has to swipe right 200 times to get one coffee. And then 4 of those 5 coffees will ghost him.
Oh,
They will
okay.
decide.
This is another reason why men are abandoning the dating market and why they're forced to be incels, like I say in the title of this video, okay? Incels means involuntarily celibate because the numbers just aren't there. It's a numbers game, and the numbers aren't working for guys in their 20s, probably even guys in the first half of their 30s. It's after that, it's after 35 that men start to become very valuable in the dating market, as long as they haven't wasted their lives up till that point. That's the caveat I'm going to make.
They don't want to meet him or they won't show up. That means a guy of average
Mhm.
attractiveness has to swipe right 1,000 times to get one coffee. Now, what does that tell that guy? Women don't value
Oh,
me. Women make me feel rejected. And then they go online and they see these misogynists telling them it's not your fault.
Mhm.
And these
they don't need to do that. Like I said, that's one avenue. That's one road they could take in response to this. But I am giving you another option, and please share this with somebody that could benefit from it. I say you need to be patient. You need to work on yourself, and you need to be an optimist. And that's not what's happening with these misogynists. It sounds like online, the manosphere.
these men become much more prone to misogynistic content, much more prone to nationalistic content, blaming other people for the lack of economic opportunity. They start sequestering from society. I worry that we are literally evolving a new species of asexual, asocial male. And if a man by the age of 30 hasn't either lived with someone or married someone, there's a 1 in 3 chance he's going to have a substance abuse problem.
Okay, well, substance abuse is high anyway. If you ask me, define substance. I mean, you could define caffeine and alcohol as a substance abuse or addiction. And in this new species he's talking about, I mean, it's already out there. People, it's already happening. The question is, how are you going to react to it? Are you going to take the negative way? And if you do, you go down that rabbit hole and you may never recover. So don't. That's why I'm saying share this video with somebody that could benefit, because if they start taking the wrong path, that could be life destroying, and you don't want that.
Wow.
In addition, it goes so much deeper than that because if they don't develop the skills,
Yeah.
the reason romantic comedies are 2 hours, not 15 minutes, is this shit is hard.
Mhm.
Like finding an attractive, intelligent woman, generally speaking, 75% of people who've been married longer than 30 years say in the beginning, one was much more interested than the other. And it was almost always the man. Women are much choosier. The basis of
Mhm.
evolution is seed trying to get everywhere, men, and women deploying a much finer filter to select the strongest, smartest, and fastest speed.
Course, that's just biological because men can impregnate, hundreds of women over the couple of days. One man could do that, and one woman could only conceive one child in that time. And of course, then they're locked up for 9 months and wait a tons of time after that. So it's funny because in a way, this video and this discussion is making it sound like women have the upper hand here. But I think it's actually men that do, and it's not being explored by them. And that's why I'm out here making sure that this message is being communicated.
So men need an environment to demonstrate excellence. And you hear these women talk about it. He was kind. He was good at work. I liked the way he smelled. He was funny. Where do men demonstrate excellence when they're not going to college?
Mhm.
They're not going into an office because of remote work. Where do they have, they're not going to church, they're not going to temple. Where does a woman have the opportunity to fall in love other than these
Art spaces.
baseline
Yeah.
metrics? And you were talking about women say, you've seen these TikToks, over $100,000, that's not unreasonable, and over 6 feet, that's 2.2% of the male population.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So where do they fall in love? Where can a man demonstrate excellence? It used
But keep in mind, like I said, I went on 9 dates in one day, quality dates, where I'd already ruled out so many others because I wouldn't necessarily even agree to a date after researching their social media, which I highly recommend that you do, so you find out who they really are, not the 10-year-old pictures and everything else. Although people are better and better at curating their social media these days, so it's harder to actually find out what's real, and it's so much of it's embellished or fake. But the guy, um, If a guy's into that and that's what a guy wants, that you could go on indefinitely for the reasons they're saying right here. All right. And then the problem is all the women, he's had all the women. The women are not necessarily what these other guys who are waiting 15, 20 years to do something to make their move are. So they're not going to be interested in those women. So women, this is a message to you as well in terms of, if you ever want to get with a guy um, long term, what you're going to have to do. I think some of the strategies that need to be deployed here are not being talked about in this discussion. And that's why I'm analyzing this.
We go to temple, 7 single women, 7 single men, and they kind of paired off and worked
Mhm.
it out. And online dating, similar to online e-commerce, online rentals, it's created a winner take most, if not all, environment. And it's
Mhm.
it's
It's gamified. Everything's gamified. And yeah, most people cannot win the game. Only a select few can win the game, the 80-20 principle at work here. And this is what the dating market has turned into. It's what the fertility market has turned into. It's what the child producing market. And I'm talking about regular people. When I say regular people, I am talking about almost everyone. I'm not saying middle class or anything, almost everyone, excluding the extremely poor and the filthy, filthy rich people. Uh, Anywhere in between is what this discussion is about, what I'm talking about and what they're talking about.
basically been amazing for attractive guys, attractive,
Mhm.
wealthy guys, tall, wealthy guys. It's been amazing for them.
Especially somebody that's from the shoulders up that looks good in pictures too, because that's all they're being judged on.
For all the other guys, it's been a disaster, and it's
Yeah.
been made it mildly shittier for every woman. The
Yes.
digitization of
It's a good
mating, I
summary.
believe, has been a disaster. It's been bad for women. It's been disastrous for men.
But remember, I think maybe what it's doing is it's if people want to get in long-term relationships, I think marriages are still very good as long as you use all the tools that you have to make sure that you get a good relationship. And if you want one that's long term, if you want one that includes having your own biological kids, or just one that's long term, there are ways to do that. And they're not focusing on that in this video. They're just focusing on the average person who's trying to find someone at any point in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, or 50s. It sounds like, but I think a lot of this is motivated by procreation and wanting to have your own kids. A lot of this discussion, because if it was just about having sex and nothing but that, like Scott just pointed out, I think you got 2% or a little more of the men that are going to have all the sex pretty much in terms of if there was a graph of which men had how much, they would have almost all of it. And then the women, they all want to look the same, which is kind of they're not touching on that either. All women kind of because of the internet, they all want to look the same, and they all can because you just go get your Botox fillers, liposuction, color everything, eyelash extensions. Everyone suddenly looks the same. Men aren't doing that, not straight men anyway, and or actually maybe they are, but they don't really have to, as is being described here, as long as they meet the other requirements that women have.
I want to talk about how the genders seem to be separating in a lot of important ways. We know from research around political affiliation that women are now, on average, 30% more liberal than men. So
Okay, this follows along because the women are going after all the men that will never agree to settle down with them, and so they've got to be more liberal with their values here. They're having relationships and sex with all kinds of men, and so are the men. Those few, so are those. Okay, but the other men are going to become way more conservative because they're like, wait a minute, I don't want that. I can't even compete in that. I can't compete in that. They're being realistic. And what's the meaning of life? What's the point of life? Is it just to go out and have sex with as many women as possible? And they're realizing, well, no, actually, it's not anyway. So this is a good thing. It should be looked at as a good thing. And what do I need to do to make myself more attractive to women as I go into my mid 30s and beyond? That's what should be thought about here. But that means, yeah, men are more conservative. So they're going to want women that have less experience in the dating market when they actually do settle down. Those are the ones they're going to want. So they're going to have to go younger before they get, because once the women get beyond that 2021 age, 22, when they're the highest value, then they've been with so many men at that point, just like they described. And these guys do not want to be, or they're not going to want to be with women that were with all those men. Come on. Do you think so? I don't think so.
they are definitely experiencing political polarization. Then, for the first time in history, more men are attending church than women. And when I
Makes
started
sense.
this research, I really came at it from this point of, is it just me or there are not as many eligible guys? But when I dug into this, I found that both genders really feel misunderstood. And so I asked men and women who has more power in relationships. So equal amounts, men and women said, oh, we have the same amount of power, 42% of that. But then what was so interesting is that 46% of men said women have more power, and 46% of women said men have more power. So there's this huge feeling of, oh, the other gender has all of this power. And when I spoke to people, I want to tell you about
Well,
3 dating
the women may realize what I'm saying, but aren't saying it, and they aren't speaking about it. But the men, of course, they're saying the other gender has more power. Listen to how this conversation's going.
paradoxes that I saw. So the first dating paradox for men is this idea that now that women are providers and do not need a man to take care of them financially, they really want guys to step up with emotional support. But here's the paradox. They were not raised and they don't know how to give that emotional support or emotional availability. So we know women, even if they have the same number of friends as guys,
Well, or they think you're gay, but I think that they do exist, and men can learn this. Keep this in mind. I don't care if they weren't raised with this. The information's out there. They can either focus on the misogynist, like they're saying in this video, and learn from them, or they can learn these skills.
the women are talking to their friends much more often. Women speak to their kids, even
It's
starting at a
true.
very young age. They
More
use more
words every day.
emotional language with their daughters and their
All
sons. So
women over men.
constantly we have this feeling where we're asking men to do something when they don't have the skills. I was talking to my
Those skills can be developed. Just because they don't have them is not an excuse for anybody for anything, if you ask me in 2025.
friend David, and he said women are in graduate school when it comes to emotional conversations and guys are in
Well,
third
yeah.
grade. The other part of
When
the
has it not been
paradox
like
is
that?
that women are asking men to be more emotional.
If you ask me, because the information's out there, men can finally catch up, if you ask me. This is a good time. You should be optimistic about this. She should be optimistic about this. Just because they're not using it all right now doesn't mean it won't happen.
Emotionally open, but then they get shamed when they do that. So we have this great quote from Brene Brown where she says, we beg guys to open up, we beg them to let us in, and then when they do, we can't stomach it. And I heard that over and over in my research. There's this quote where a guy says, a woman would rather see me die on the white horse than fall off of it. And so there's this sense that I have to be perfect, I have to be the masculine and the feminine, but I don't have the skills to do that. And women say that they want these guys to be emotional, but as soon as they show emotionality, it can freak those women out.
They want the bad boy. This is another thing. You got to adjust your expectations here. Simple as
So
that.
one guy that I spoke to for this said, I went on a few dates with this woman. At some point, I told her that my mom had had a suicide attempt. And the next day, she texted me and said, I'm sorry, I can't see you. I cannot process your emotional trauma for you. And so guys are getting a lot of mixed messages. We want you to be feminine. We want you to support us. But when you do, it freaks us out. And so we don't want that. And digging into the research, and I want to look into this more, I think it's that a lot of women want emotional support. They want you to support them in their emotional journeys, but they're not as ready to have you open up in your emotional journey.
Huh. It's one sided. Women, what do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. Is that an accurate description?
Can I put forward a thesis and I want you to respond
Yeah.
to it because I haven't done the research. In marketing, we call it consumer dissonance, what people say they want
Yeah.
and then what they actually buy. And what women say they want is an emotionally in touch man, and what they want is a masculine man. And that they will
Yep.
articulate what they want in a man, and includes being more emotionally available. And then they want to have sex with a traditional masculine man. And what I hear from a lot of, and this is anecdotal evidence, and it's pulse marketing, and you tell me what the data says, but there's just so many single women in my age group, and it feels like there's literally no men in my age group. As bad as it is for people in their 20s and 30s, try
Yeah.
being a woman in your 50s trying to date, right? And they tell me the same thing. These are liberal, progressive, educated women. They say, by the way, I like a manly man.
Yeah.
And they say it under their breath. So there's what supposedly is stated around, I need more emotional availability, someone who's touch with their feelings. But what the research shows is they want a guy with facial hair, who's still, women are still very attracted to
Mhm.
traditional masculine attributes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just in such a hard moment because you have women who are saying, I don't want to date a guy who earns less than me. And
Transition,
you might think, okay, well,
hopefully.
the data hasn't caught up with the dating. If
I remember not too long ago, the whole debate was, should a woman and a man split the check? Oh, it's horrible if the man doesn't pay. I mean, I think we're way beyond that now, thankfully.
more women are in higher education and more women are earning more, then maybe you're going to be the one who earns more in your relationship. But what they feel like is projecting out, I'm going to end up doing most of the housework, most
Yeah.
of the childcare. I might as well get a guy that can contribute financially. So they don't want to change their expectations around that. And so I
Well, there's is that correct, women? You assume that the man is not going to help out with the children and the housework still? Uh,
think we truly are in a moment where women are being asked to do more masculine things and men are being asked to do more feminine things. And I think a lot of that is progress, but it also seems to be
I feel like she's talking like it's the late '90s. I thought we've made more progress in this. Correct me if I'm wrong.
creating a lot of confusion in the dating world.
Yeah, it's sort of, I was just thinking, I coach a lot of young men, and occasionally women ask me for dating advice. And you coach, it sounds like a lot of both. And first thing I say to men is I ask them, like, would you want to have sex with you? All right. Are you in shape? What do you look like naked? Do you have a plan? You don't have to be rich now, but do you have a plan?
Yeah,
Right.
it's important.
Have you found means of being confident? Can you demonstrate kindness and excellence across anything? And the only advice I give women is second coffee. And that is, maybe it wasn't great. I mean, if you don't like the guy and you're just like turned off, fine. But
Yeah,
if it was just
I think women more of an issue with perfectionism here in general, but definitely here in relationships too.
okay, maybe give it a second coffee.
I have a chapter in my book called Make the Second Date the Default.
Yeah.
And it's really because I feel like I won the lottery with my husband, but he is somebody that takes longer to open up and he's the slow burn. We met in college, we met again 7 years later, then we were friends for a year. And I feel like he's this incredible partner, husband, father, but I don't know that if we'd met just randomly on the first date that I would have gone on a second date. And so I
Yeah.
think people really do need to train themselves to look for these slow burns.
Logan,
Slow
Scott said something there about what he thinks women want, which is these sort of
Yeah.
traditional masculine features. Is this what you see in the data?
What's hard is I think Scott's right about what people say they want versus so stated versus revealed preferences. So according to the research that I did, women are saying the number one thing that they're looking for is kindness and compassion. That's also what men are saying that
kindness and compassion, is that real, women? Let me know. I mean, because everything else is like the sixes and yeah, a bad boy. Uh,
they're looking for. So in many ways this is great. People are looking for the same things, but I just feel like there's these huge disconnects now where
yeah,
people
the
don't feel
cognitive
like they can
dissonance that
get what
Scott
they want.
mentioned,
Men
it
are saying
seems
they
like
want
it's correct.
kindness and compassion.
That was I made them say, what are all the things that you care about? And then what is the number one thing that you care about? And kindness and compassion was first for both
Well, that's also like when you go to the doctor. Hey, what are you eating? Oh, salads. A lot of salads. No, not telling the truth. That's what that is.
of them.
The stuff I've seen or the stuff I've read is that for women, and I've talked to men about this, number one
Mhm.
is they have to signal resources. And we don't like to say it out loud. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a Range Rover and a Panerai now, but you have a
Signal
plan,
resources.
right? You have your shit together. You go home at midnight when everyone's partying because you have to be up for work. You work out, which shows a level of discipline and that you can commit to something. You're in school. You've got a good job. This person is going to have resources. And I don't think that's changed a whole lot. I think a man.
Interesting. When I was dating a lot, I tried to not signal resources so much as I could. But now it seems like, yeah, women think you have nothing unless you prove to them and show them your balance sheet and your statement of net worth or something like that. That has really changed.
Man's ability to signal future resources has gone down. I'm not sure it's become any less of a criteria. Number two is intellect.
Mhm.
And it's very instinctual because if you make good decisions for the tribe, your kids are more likely to survive.
Mhm.
Someone who's smart is more likely to take care of your offspring than someone who's stupid. What's interesting, and I love this, is the fastest way to communicate intellect is humor.
Hmm.
And I joke,
Make
and
jokes.
this is bad, but I say, this is my impression of a woman. I'm laughing, I'm naked. And that is, I've always thought if a guy can make a woman laugh,
Yeah.
she will date him. And then the third thing And this is where guys screw up. This is what I tell a guy's secret weapon is. It's kindness. Women want to see that you
What about the nice guys finish last? I still think that applies. I think both of these people, even in this whole discussion, has a little bit of cognitive dissonance to it in terms of what people really actually want when it's put in front of them.
are a good person. You treat service staff well. You're good to your parents. You have manners. You treat people well, even with no reciprocal expectation, because they know that a kind person.
I think women would, no matter what the guy does to the waiter when they're out on the date, if he's paying and he looks hot and he has all the other boxes checked, she'll date him for as long as he'll date her, and so on. And that's how the market is right now. And these folks are focusing in more on reproduction, I think, without really saying it so much. But that's a little bit different aspect. I think there's two different types of dating that are actually going on out there.
If and when she's vulnerable and needs help and maybe isn't as bringing as much to the table for certain periods of time, that this is a kind man. And sure, you want to do your best to signal resources and have a plan. Sure, maybe you're smart, maybe you aren't. There's not a lot you can do there. But the secret weapon, I think, for men that they don't leverage, and I do think it's a practice, is to demonstrate kindness. And we don't talk about that enough as men. It's like, well, okay, and it's little things. Have good manners.
Mhm.
Be thoughtful. Follow up with people. And I think that, anyways, those are the three things that I have read women want in men.
Okay, there's so much there. So one is I do think we need a new definition for modern masculinity or mature masculinity or evolved masculinity, and I think that that's why this moment feels so painful is that we don't have it. Because I agree with you. I don't think women are saying I want a feminine man. I think they want a modern masculine man. And so that means somebody who is decisive and can provide, but also somebody who's able to communicate with them emotionally. And so one of the suggestions that I came here today to talk about is this idea of men's groups. So, about a year ago, my friend David Clavins, who happens to be a world class magician, came to my husband and said, I'm going to form this men's group. And so it's about 6 or 7 men, and they meet together monthly, and they have they have formed this council of peers. So every month that they get together, every guy sits down with post it notes and says the 2 issues that are most pressing for him. So, first of all, I think that that's a great way of doing it because it's actually that time to say, what am I struggling with? I think many people in their lives, maybe especially men, don't sit there and saying, what's top of mind for me? So, guys get the quiet time to do that. Then they go
Sure, I guess if that's a way to do the work that needs to be done, then I'm all for it.
around in a circle, and whoever has the most pressing issue, they get to take their time. And some men might say,
I think men in their 20s and halfway through their 30s would be incredibly wise to have habits like she's talking about during that time when you're not dating, working on yourself. I think that's a great thing. I wish they would have framed it like that in this video.
these are top of mind for me, but it's not a priority. I'll give the time to someone else. And each month, they talk about what's going on for them. They hold each other accountable. So, month 3, they might say, hey, David, you've been talking about that for the last 3 months. Are you going to actually do anything about it? And I love that these men have a masculine space to actually go through what's going on for them because maybe they have wives and girlfriends they can go to. Maybe they don't. But I think it's a different type of advice that you get from a council of trusted peers. And I really do think that men's groups could
Yeah.
change a lot of these issues because I can sit here and say everybody should be in therapy. Guess what? Therapy is really expensive, and many insurance companies will not provide it, or there's a huge waiting list. And so, if we just sit around for all these guys to go to therapy, that's not going to happen. But men's
Plus, with therapy, the problem that I have with that is they're not watching you. They are basing everything on what you tell them, whatever stories you tell them. I would think that if you're with a group of guys, it may be more real, than if you're with a therapist in an office setting.
groups are a way that men can lead each other. They can provide this tribe of peers. And I have just seen so many changes in this group. So, David told me his story where he had a lot of anger about his mom's debilitating illness. And he wasn't really experiencing it, and it was coming out as anger at his mom, but he wasn't conscious of that. But by getting the anger out in a safe place with men, the only place where he felt like he could truly be angry, he was able to get over it and to actually treat his mom with a lot more empathy. Or my husband has gone to the group and talked about ego stuff at work or how hard the transition to becoming a parent has been. And I feel like the men in this group have grown so much over the 12 months that it's been happening that I just paid for my brother in law to be in a men's group. And I want there to be tons of men's
Paid.
groups because I really feel like this
I
isn't an
guess they're
issue that
paid,
a
not
therapist
free.
or a mom or I can really solve. I think men need to be solving this problem within themselves.
What you said is really powerful because if you walk down the hallway at Stern, there's Golden Seeds, women in venture capital, Black Women's Consulting Club. There are women's support. There's nothing for men. And these groups are really wonderful. Man Talks is one that I've been looking at where they've said, let's get together and just be supportive of each other.
And again, I would use this in the way that, for men who might be angry or hooked into misogyny or the manosphere, use that instead and develop yourself, improve yourself during these times so that you can have the goal of getting the relationship you want when the timing's right.
And it's a fairly new
Yeah.
phenomenon.
I think people are afraid of men gathering because traditionally bad things have happened in that.
Gangs.
Right.
Mob
I
scene.
mean, gangs. I'm just thinking of like many situations in
That's
which, like,
funny.
if once there's a
Yeah, I see too many street scenes where people are doing burnouts in stolen cars. That's the men's gathering. Even now is what you see. So we need to normalize this.
tiki torch, I want there to be some women there, right? Like, so there's a reason why people have been fearful of this. Or it's like when the whole world was a men's group, a men's club, you didn't need to have men's clubs.
Yeah.
But I think in this moment, this is a really powerful, organic, grassroots way for men to change. So I imagine that you have group chat.
How about just learn? You're saying change. Use the tools, learn. Almost, but women need to learn too, or else suffer the consequences as I've described here. It goes both ways, if you ask me.
Chats with men that are your peers that you go to for advice. And I feel like there's men out there that don't have that. And we are meant to make decisions by getting advice from other people. I personally have a board of directors that in my life, when I'm going to make a big decision, I meet with them. So when I took my last
Board
job,
of
when I
directors.
decided to move, all these different things, I meet with my board of directors and I say, what am I not seeing? What are my blind spots? And they've given me a lot of good and hard advice.
Okay, let's stop right here. So I think that's great. People should learn, men should learn, women need to learn too about these dynamics. This was a nice starter discussion, analyzing it between the two of them. But I think you need to really think about some of the points that I brought up here in terms of how this is going to play out. And that women still want everything, and men are feeling hopeless in their 20s. That combination is incredibly, that's toxic. That combination of things. So let me know your thoughts in the comments and give me a thumbs up if you like this. And please, definitely share this with somebody that can benefit. See you in the next one.